The following presentation is a production of Ride the Wave Media.
Hello and welcome to Practically Magick. I am Courtney Pearl. Today, I am your emotional healer, among many things. If you listen to my previous episodes, I will list all of the things I am, but today's topic, we are going to focus on emotional and understanding our brain a little bit better is the topic today. So let's get into it with the first thing that we do. We're going to pull a card. Today I'm going to pull from the Elemental Oracle deck because it's very sciencey. It is alchemy, science, and magic on the front. And so I think because we're going to be talking about a lot of sciencey type things, we're going to combine the magic of real science with some, I think, what is really pretty incredible when it comes to our bodies, our minds, and how that all plays a part in the magic that we're able to create. And I'm going to pull a card from this deck. And this was actually the first deck that I ever got. My sister gave it to me for my birthday, I think it was, or Christmas. I can't remember exactly. But she was the one who sparked my love for divination because I'd always been curious about it. She got me my own first cards, and I have been kind of obsessed with reading cards ever since. Now, sometimes when I pull a card, especially if I'm just doing one card for a certain person or for a certain reason, sometimes it's just one card, a simple reading, just what do I need to know? And for today, this is going to be either about the subject we're going to talk about today, or it might be just something that you need. And sometimes you're pulling just one card, it's kind of confusing, or you might just pull a card and stare at it for a while and nothing happens. Nothing comes to you. So the card that I have pulled is speed. And in this deck, the key word for that is movement. And you can see that there is a person speeding almost as if they're running faster than the speed of light over a city, over the curvature of the earth, and then there's just clouds and space behind. And when I see this card, the first thing that I think of, I'm like, what is it? What is it about? Why am I getting this card for today, for you, for me, for this episode? And it's not immediately clear. So sometimes what I'll do if I'm just doing one card is I will pull a second card as a clarifying card, or, really there's rules. So you can pull whatever you want. But I'm going to pull a second card to go with this one. Instead of just having speed be the only message or the only part of the message, I pulled the card plant. And it looks like a picture of a reindeer, but instead of the reindeer having antlers, it has a tree growing for its antlers. And on its back, instead of fur, it has a forest of trees. And the key word here is growth, which then does help me to kind of get the detail of what is it that this card is trying to tell us, or what is the message here that we can intuitively decipher from the first card, which is speed and movement, growth and plan. To me, that's a real, defining message as far as sometimes when we are looking for something to be speedy or fast or to work for us the way that we want it to, there's a rush and an urgency to it. But just like you cannot urge plants to grow faster, and growth does not happen in those moments where something is being forced or when there is manipulation happening, it's oftentimes the result is less desirable than what would have happened if we had let the natural progression of the plants growing to happen. And I feel like this is the same message that I would give to my kindergartners and first graders when I was a teacher, which is sometimes the fastest way to get something done is to slow down. Because oftentimes my students would rush through things, make more mistakes, or be incredibly sloppy with their work and would need to go back and do it again. And I would tell them sometimes slowing down and doing it at a pace that is less urgent or less stressed is really going to be the key to getting it done in a timely manner. And you'll find out that not having to go back and correct mistakes and not having to go back and rewrite things or redo things, which would actually cause you to take more time, you'll actually be done faster or probably on time if you just slow down and work through each and every step methodically. That doesn't always work for everyone, but it's a good rule of thumb when it comes to just general looking at life and how we deal with our problems. And I think it's a great message for today's episode because we are going to be talking a little bit about the brain and how the brain works and some of the new research that has come out in the last 10 years where they've done a lot more research on neuroplasticity and how the brain operates. And so I'm going to try to explain this in a way that is clear and concise and without getting too confusing about things. But when I explain this to children in my workshops, when I do my Heart Smart Art workshops with kids, I want children to understand that being able to process their emotions and being able to understand and be aware of their emotions can be a really good step in actually getting what they need. And so sometimes mindfulness and awareness and the kinds of things that I teach in this healing world is more about understanding the self, understanding what needs that you have, and using the power of your own brain to make that happen for you. And our brain, I'm not sure I can even really begin to describe it, but we know the brain is a very powerful, just the stories that have come out of people who seem to have healed themselves from things that their doctors told them would never be healed. Spinal injuries. I've heard stories of people who have something where it's irreversible. Doctors have told them they will not heal from this. They won't be able to walk again or things like that. And with just the power of their mind, they were able to heal things that previously were believed impossible. And so we know the mind to be a really powerful tool. And there is still so much we don't know about that. How the energy of thought actually affects reality, how it affects the way that cells mutate and divide and the way that they interact with each other, the way that our DNA turns on and off, and the instructions in our DNA are going to be influenced by our thought, our environment, the energy around us, whatever it is. There is so much that is coming out about this that previously, I think in past generations would have been all hooey. Like people would have been baffled to be told that they could think their way into health or that they could, manifest something to be possible or that their environment, the music they listen to, the vibrations around them can actually influence the DNA in their body. The DNA encoded in their cells would be able to react to their environment. And now that we're, kind of studying epigenetics, we know a lot more about that than we used to. Okay, so I'm not going to go too far into all of the science and the biology that we could possibly talk about today because we'll go off on tangents. We'll completely take all of our time. But I want to start out with a little bit of story time. So last episode that came out last week, we talked about the in-between spaces That would be an episode where I show up as a Celtic priestess to help you understand the Celtic sacredness of the in-between spaces. And it reminded me, after I recorded the episode, I thought, I should have told this story because it goes really, really well aligned with what we talked about. But it's also going to play a part in what we're going to talk about today. So I like to call this story In Between the Shannons. And I do hope that my good friend Shannon will hear this story. And I hope that she knows that I am presenting her in the absolute best light that I can, while still being truthful about my experience. When I was a teacher, I was a teacher in Arizona in a little charter school. We were a very small school, but we had one of those schools because a desert is really hot in Arizona. A lot of schools have. They're not like the schools you would see here in Utah, where it's a building or structure full of classrooms and then hallways and an office and everything all included in one building. A lot of the buildings in Arizona are kind of like some of the schools I've seen in California, where it's an open outdoor common space and you enter the classrooms directly from the outside. And so our school was set up like that in kind of an L shape, but all of the classrooms were connected by doorways. And so I had a classroom where I was teaching, I think that year I was teaching kindergarten. I was either teaching kindergarten or first grade because that's what I taught there. But that year I had a classroom where on one side of me, there was a Shannon, one of my best friends that taught at the school with me. Her name was Shannon. And then on the other side of me, through the other door, was another Shannon, also one of my very good friends. And these Shannons it was really interesting. And I don't think this is just coincidence. I feel like some things are destined to be the way that they are. These Shannons happened to share a birthday. They both had the same birthday. So Cambria, who does the astrology, she could probably tell you all of these reasons why this is a cosmic coincidence that isn't coincidence, right? These two Shannons that had the same birthday, they were teaching on either side of me that year. And I had the first grade Shannon. She was teaching first grade on my right side. So if I'm facing the classroom, this is what I felt like was my right side. She was over there, and she, during that time, I think this was the year that she was pregnant with her first child, and she was, had only been married for a few years. She was fairly young at the time. Well, we all were at the time, our young selves. Yeah, and she was the type of person that definitely had an agenda. She was very much, I would say, an anxious person. She liked things tidy. She liked things clean. She stuck to a schedule. We called her the Queen of Lysol because she would Lysol, wipe, and spray the desks and chairs maybe twice a day, maybe possibly more than twice a day. Now, we're post-COVID now, so this all doesn't seem that strange, but this was pre-COVID. So to us, that felt a little extreme. Like, sometimes you do have to let germs thrive because it builds immunity and things like that. So we thought, of course, as teachers, we want to keep our classrooms clean and we want to keep our kids safe from getting sick. But we felt like first grade Shannon was pretty extreme about it because Lysoling and hand sanitizer for all of the students was very, very, very regimented. She paid a lot of attention. She kept a very clean and orderly classroom. All of the materials, everything was filed and organized. She kept a very tight schedule of the children and their schedule when they do math, when they do centers, when they do reading, when they do this, when they do that, was always pretty on point. It wasn't terribly flexible. And none of this is to say that any of it was bad. This is just the way first grade Shannon did life. Like this is who she was. This is, was a really good way to be. And I think it made her feel very sick. I think it made her feel safe from getting sick, but also it created a sense of certainty and control, which everybody loves a little bit. So what's interesting about this is that the other side of me, on the left side, the other Shannon, was teaching third grade. And third grade Shannon was almost completely opposite. You almost couldn't find her desk in the mess and stacks of papers that she just couldn't really be bothered to file or put away. And at one point, I mean, we playfully, lovingly teased each other about all of these things, that that the one Shannon on the right side, she just loved Lysol. She was a Lysol queen. And this Shannon, third grade Shannon, wasn't even allowed to have a desk because it would just be a catch-all for every paper. And she didn't necessarily stick to a rigid schedule. She barely filed anything. Even every year when lesson plans were being written for the new year, she pretty much started over every year because she'd be like, well, I never bothered to file anything that I did last year, so I guess I'll just recreate everything again this year, which created a lot more work for her, but that's just how she did it. And she, oh my gosh, she just kind of was really loosey-goosey with the schedule. It was kind of like, whatever we feel like we need to be doing, that's what we're going to do. We don't move on until everybody's ready, but we also just kind of take it as it comes. Which for a very rigid person or a very organized person, that could be really difficult. If you were, let's say, the principal of school and the boss, you might be like, we're going to need lesson plans turned in on time, and we're going to need this. We're going to need to know what your schedule is and have your class on a schedule. But one thing about third grade Shannon was that she always kept a cupboard full of food. We lived in a very low income area, which was a lot of poverty, to be honest. And that's the Title I school, the environment that the kids were coming home and coming to school in. A lot of times they came to school hungry or hadn't eaten breakfast, maybe even dinner the night before. All of our meals, breakfast and lunch at the school were free. So we provided as much as we could for our students and our demographic. And one thing that third grade Shannon always did is she spent her own money, and she always provided and always made sure that her cupboards were full of food so that any student that was hungry would have a granola bar or some graham crackers or something that she had available. And she always paid very close attention to any changes in behavior or any clues or indication that the child needed something she could help provide. When a student was acting out or when something, was amiss, she was the first to notice, and she was the first to investigate and to find out what that child really needed. Not that they were just acting out and needed some kind of punishment or consequence, but that they needed something emotional. They needed some needs met. She was very in tune and aware of her students and their needs. And even though these Shannons seemed like very opposite, the entire school year that I spent teaching in that classroom taught me so much about the balance of life. I admired both of these women so much. I saw the way that they handled life and what they did, and I took from that what was really going to work for me. I was even just amazed at first grade Shannon. She would, we were good friends, and so I would go and help her at home. When her baby was born, I came and helped babysit him. And so I had been, personally engaged in going to her house and getting to know her, and I, having dinners with her and things. And I was delighted and amazed at how she could tidy or clean as she was doing things. It was like nothing was a big strain. It was just done at the exact same time as everything else. So she would be cooking and cleaning at the same time, so that by the time she was done with a meal, the kitchen was still clean. And that kind of like orderliness was really admirable to me. I was like, I could see myself living like this. There's never a big stressful, oh my gosh, everything's a mess. We have to take 2 or 3 hours to clean it all up. It was like, this is just how we live so that everything is already clean or done. And I really admired that. And I wanted to take that into my life and make that part of who I was. At the same time, I really admired how third grade Shannon, was so emotionally intelligent and in tune with her students and didn't follow necessarily a rigidness that would not allow for her to meet their needs. Things need to be on schedule, but if your schedule creates stress, then the students don't learn and it's not as productive as you think it is, right? This is going to fall so perfectly in line with our episode today. So a lot of the resources that I am going to pull forward for you come from my time learning from a program called FLY, Fulfill Life Yourself. And I'm going to include all of this and links to this in my blog because it was one of the most powerful experiences to be able to come from the School of Healing Arts and then dive into some of the more scientific or concrete evidence-based things, models, as far as how our brain works and operates. And I think that I live my life in sort of an in-between state as far as some things are unexplained and magical, energetics, and the way that shows up for me in my life, the spiritual. And some of it is based on the scientific research and the things that we do know about energy, about brain, and about thought. And what this is, it's called the Neuro Associate Programming, or the NAAP model. And it is a way that the FLY program teaches people to understand their brain better so that they can operate and function more productively. So one thing that they told us as we were beginning this program is that they said when they've mapped the neural pathways, when they've been able to look and research neural pathways in the brain, they found that people who are diagnosed with depression or anxiety, oftentimes their brain maps look exactly the same, are all lit up in the same areas in their brain scan as people who struggle with addiction. And the reason for that is because our neural pathways are created by getting chemical needs met. We create these little connections and synapses because from the moment our brain is developing in the womb as a fetus, it's looking to get certain chemical needs met. So what's interesting about that is, so let's say you're making all of these little connections and you're saying, okay, let's say you're a little baby in the womb and you have a feeling because maybe your mom is listening to a really nice song and you're feeling the vibrations of this nice song, and little fetus self is like, "Ooh, I like this." It's going to make a little connection of the experience that you're having and the good feeling you're feeling, and it's going to create this little roadmap, right? Now, your little roadmaps, your neural pathways, your brain map, if you will, are being created from the womb. And what's interesting about that is by the time you're born, okay, so like from the moment you come out of your mother, you are a tiny little baby. You have not even been in the world for more than an hour. But all of that development you've had in the womb, your brain is already mapped 25%. And a lot of people would wonder, like, what mapping is going on when you're just a fetus in the womb? Well, that comes from all of the energy and experiences, sound, smell, taste, that your mother is having while pregnant with you. So there's good news and there's bad news with that, is that yes, what your mother is experiencing, and that may be stress and trauma, or it may be, whatever is happening, it is going to have an effect on the fetus. So a lot of people believe for a very long time that children under the age of 3 don't remember anything anyway. So it really doesn't matter what happens to them. That if they have something traumatic happen around them, or, to their parents or something, that they're going to easily forget and easily get over it, and it doesn't matter. But in my line of work as an emotional healer, that is not true. That trauma can affect the body from even as early as being a fetus, and that the effects on the body and the brain are unknowable until we start doing some processing or energy work to dive into what might be going on there. It's all going to go into the subconscious. It's going to pass through a little filter in our brain and say, this might be important. I'm going to hold on to this. And it becomes a subconscious thing. Okay, so don't let me get sidetracked here. We're getting to a point. So you're 25% brain map when you come out of the womb. By the time you are 3, you have 75% of your brain mapped. And by the time you are 8 years old, you have 100% of your brain mapped. So with that, there's good news and no good news. The good news is the way that you are and the way that you've decided to do life, the way that you've looked for your needs to be met, and the way that you've tried to avoid pain is not your fault. Literally, it all happened. All those decisions had been made before you were even 8 years old. I mean, do we really look at 8-year-olds and say they've got life figured out? They've got life together? A lot of the brain mapping that we have had during that time of development is very contradictory to each other. So when we are triggered and stressed in life, when we experience anxiety, it can be because those brain maps that we have had since before we were 8 years old, they don't quite make sense. They contradict each other. They fly up in our face at times when we are supposed to be pulling that information out and it's supposed to be helping us. We often have these ideas or these decisions in our subconscious that were based on a lie. And I'm going to try to give an example that will help you understand what this would potentially look like or feel like. So you are a little baby and you have something happen. Maybe someone pinches you and you experience pain. You're automatically going to be looking around. The little baby is going to look around and see, what is causing me pain? Why am I feeling pain? I need to try to avoid that pain in the future. So I need to figure out what that is about. And maybe baby sees something that is the color green. Okay. A green plant in the corner or something. And they're going to just kind of subconsciously remember that or make a little, brain map about it. Then later, at some other point, little baby is going to maybe be crawling around and someone steps on their finger and they feel pain again. And maybe the carpet is green. So even though it doesn't make sense, it's possible that little baby is creating a little roadmap that connects those two experiences of having experienced pain and saying, well, the color green gives me pain. Now, our adult, conscious, logical minds can be like, well, of course, green doesn't cause pain. That's just a color baby happened to see. But baby doesn't know that. And baby is the one who is actually creating those roadmaps. And those roadmaps are going to be there. Even as an adult, when we try to remap that, it's almost impossible to remap those subconscious beliefs without knowing where they came from or why they are there or what need was needing to get met. So we may be or have a real strong aversion to the color green, or, that can show up in a lot of different ways in our lives, and we don't even understand why. But we do understand that those contradicting roadmaps and brain maps are going to cause us stress in the future or in our adult brains and experiences. So healing that means being aware of it and being self-aware and mindful and witnessing those triggers and then doing the work of figuring out how to remap those things. Now, there are infinite possibilities as to how we are made, how we think it, how we came to be the people we are today, right? So there is absolutely no way we can completely remap our entire brain and to solve all problems forever. However, when I said there's good news and there's good news, the good news is the way that you are is not your fault. The other good news is the research is showing that we all do have neuroplasticity. We are able to reprogram our brains. It's hard work and there are steps to it, but there are programs and people who understand and know this work that can help you. And that is why I firmly believe in emotional processing, the work that I do when I facilitate healing with clients. It's not that I'm healing you, but I am trained and certified in a process that helps people to become aware of what are those triggering decisions, what are those subconscious belief systems that were programmed into the brain from a very young age, right? The way I like to explain it is if we're a computer, you have downloaded a lot of programs into your computer, right? Our brain and our bodies are computers. And all those experiences were just us, programming ourselves. And we downloaded all of these programs, and I don't claim to know a lot about computers. So, technical people might be listening to this analogy that I'm giving and be like, you're crazy, this is stupid, but go with it. Just set aside anything that I'm saying wrong. But the idea here is that there is a lot of software that's out of date. It doesn't make any sense, or it operates slowly, or it takes up a lot of memory, or it just sabotaging other programs we are trying to download that would work better, updated programs. And what it's going to take for us to be able to go through and reprogram, it's going to take identifying what those programs are that are running in our system that we don't even know they're there most of the time. Because our body and our brain is kind of like, well, I'm running this program because I actually just don't really know what to do different. I haven't come up with any new ways. I haven't come up with anything that works better than this. So I'm just going to keep falling into this old system over and over again because otherwise I don't really know what to do. And that can be self-sabotaging behaviors and belief systems that we carry with us that keep causing us problems in relationships or in the way that we do life or in how we decide to get our needs met. And really, it's just going to take pulling those out and becoming aware of them to be able to say, okay, if I was willing to let that belief system go, would I be open to a new program and a new way so I can invite that in to be my new neural pathway, my new roadmap? And neuroplasticity says, the research says that you can do that. It takes high emotion. So an emotional process is really helpful because you're going to bring forward emotions. Having that emotional connection to that decision, to that map, is going to help you understand what it's costing you or what it's doing for you, and then what it's costing you. And this is going to take us to our 6 basic human needs. So I have a list of 6 basic human needs from the FLY program, from the NAAP model that I teach people because I want them to understand themselves better. That anytime that they're triggered and anytime that they feel that anxiety or even depression coming on, it is very helpful to know what are the human needs? Which one or several of the human needs am I trying to get met here? And if it's not being met, how can I get that need met in a better way? Right? So the 6 basic human needs are directly corresponding to chemical needs that created those neural pathways. For example, the first one is certainty, control, and comfort. Okay? All of us in some way, shape, or form is looking for certainty, control, and comfort. We're all looking for a way that we can feel things. Okay? Feel like I know what's going to happen. There is some certainty here, or I have some control over the situation, that I'm not completely helpless to whatever it's happening. And that would give us dopamine. Okay? Just the certainty that something is happening that we can expect and that we know is going to provide us with dopamine. All right? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a minute. There's a little bit more to that. But the next one is uncertainty and variety, which I know sounds like the opposite of certainty, because it is, but that's because all of us humans need certainty, and we also need uncertainty. We need variety. We need things to be shaken up and try new things. It's that desire to drive a different way home from work, because the exact same route home from work every day just becomes really monotonous, and it's just not meeting a need. So having a little bit of variety in our lives is part of our basic human needs, and that is going to give us some endorphins, the chemical need that we all are seeking. Then there's love and connection. Okay. So even people who seem like, and maybe on the spectrum, maybe, seem like they are not looking for a connection with other people or don't need other people at all, that's just not true. Every human has the basic need of wanting to connect with other humans, or have that connection and love, not just with other humans, but with animals and communities and things like that. So obviously that's going to give us oxytocin. When you have the love chemical flowing through you, it is like a pain reliever. Some people get addicted to the synthetic chemical that would provide that sort of pain relief, which is oxytocin. And there are medicines and pain relievers that are the fake version of that. The words are not coming to my brain at the moment, but I think you kind of get my gist there. So the next one is significance and uniqueness. We are all seeking something that makes us stand out, makes us feel important, and that is serotonin. And the last two are growth and contribution. And those would be a mixture of all of those chemicals I just mentioned. And they are more of a spiritual need, being able to expand and have growth and know that you are not where you used to be, but that you are growing and progressing in life and in whatever it is you're doing. But also that you have a contribution to your community, to your family, to whatever it is you're a part of. There's a basic human need for us all to feel like we are contributing. Okay, so those are the 6 basic human needs. And those are important to know, because when I'm asking people what they do, what need are they trying to get met? Sometimes behaviors like rebelling and causing problems and always self-sabotaging themselves, their own progress, or that of their community, their family. Always kind of creating chaos, let's say, or whatever. So that would be, they're maybe looking to get love and connection. Possibly they're looking to get variety. They get a little tiny drip of endorphins when they create a little chaos and a little tension, a little drama in their life. But in being able to recognize that there is a need, there is a payoff, there is a need getting met there, but it's really not a significant amount. It's really always costing them more than they're getting. There is a really, really powerful moment of healing that happens in that awareness. When someone is able to identify what they do, why they do it, perhaps it's in a time in their lives when they were a child, when something was going on, there was a lot of heaviness and emotion, and this is what brought forward. Then you can actually begin to make those changes. There is usually a in-between stage of confusion when you are learning how to transition out of an old pattern into a new one. But the confusion state is actually a beautiful state to be in, because it means I'm not wanting to do that anymore. What I have been doing has not really been aligned with who I am and what I want to be, but it's also not giving me the burst of chemical need that I really want. It's just a drip. And this is where I joke and I tell people we're all kind of like addicts. Whether you get your needs met from outside sources like drugs and alcohol and other things that you can be addicted to, or you're looking to get those chemical needs met by the actions that you are doing, we all are kind of in the same boat. Some of us are addicted to anxiety because our brain has always felt that if we move into a state of anxiousness or fight, flight, or freeze, we might get that hit of dopamine we're looking for. In this process of healing, what I help people do is identify where is the big lie. The big lie is usually something along the lines of, if I do enough of this, I'm going to get, if I do enough stressing, anxiety, I will get enough control and certainty. That's one example, right? There are infinite numbers of examples of what I could give, but I want to kind of just give you an idea, start thinking about what it is that your things might be. And by the way, it might be pretty impossible. It's not totally impossible. I think that it's great to do your own self-healing and to think about these things, especially if you do things like meditation and journaling and you want to kind of bring forward what is you want to work on. I think all of that is valuable and useful, but I find it almost impossible for everybody to know, to be able to bring forward without some objective help, what is it that I do and what is the big lie that my brain has always told me. If I do enough of this, I'm going to get. So I want to briefly talk about the stress and anxiety side of it. If that is the state that our brain constantly goes to hopefully get one of those needs met, that would look like a confined state of mind. So here we are looking at two different states of mind. We're looking at a confined state of mind, which is something that I'm engaging with is a potential threat. And now I am in fight, flight, or flee, or freeze state of mind, okay? This is the engaging in the parasympathetic autonomic nervous system. I was going to be so proud of myself and say that totally correctly the first time, but it didn't come out right. It's running away or escaping. It's a state of fear. It's sort of victim mentality. Everything is acting upon me. It's a limited thinking. It's a scarcity thinking about what the focus is on what I don't have or what doesn't work or what I can't do. It feels unchangeable. There are expectations. This is all in a confined state of mind. Now, almost everybody listening to this, almost everybody has a pattern of going to a confined state of mind because our brain thinks that's going to get a need met. Okay? So it's automatic. It's subconscious. We don't even think about it. We're just already doing it. We go into anxiety state because we're feeling like that's going to help solve the problem, whatever is causing us to be triggered. The problem with that is how our brains actually process data. When we are in a sympathetic autonomic nervous system, see, I said it right the first time. We're in a sympathetic autonomic nervous system is engaged. When we're in fight, flight, or freeze, our brain can only process data at 40 bits per second. So if our brain is a computer, 40 bits per second is slow. So our brain or our body might feel like it's coursing with all this endorphins and anxiety, and we feel like maybe our heart rate goes up. It feels like speed. Okay. So if you go back to our cards that I pulled earlier at the beginning of the episode, it feels like, okay, now I'm moving, now I'm cooking, but actually our brain is slowing down because it has not the ability to think and process data in that state. So again, here's the big lie. The big lie is if I go to anxiety, if I go to stress, I'll solve the problem. I'll solve the problem that I'm having. Now, here's the truth. The truth is, if you were to train yourself or reprogram yourself to flip to a free state of mind, a free state of mind looks like this: rest and digest. It is the calm, true, authentic self that lives within all of us, the real us. It engages the parasympathetic autonomic nervous system. It looks towards goals and purposes. It looks at problems as a challenge or opportunity in that state. The focus is intrinsic. It is not being acted upon, but actually acting, deciding actions and where to go. There is faith as opposed to fear. There is a creative mind. That kind of goes back to the C of the true self. The true self is calm, creative, compassionate, connected. So when you can remain in that state, things are flexible and changeable. The attitude is, the focus is on abundance, gratitude, appreciation, what you do have, what you have control over, what does work, what you can do. Now think about this. In a free state of mind, the brain can process data at 40,000 bits per second. Okay? Compare that to 40 bits per second. 40,000 bits per second is a lot faster. So while it looks and feels like the body is centered and calm, breathing and heart rate are calm, the mind is able to stay in that calm, faith stories of success, timeless state. Your brain can think of thousands of solutions to the problem quickly. And that is real growth. So going back to the card, sorry if you can hear me, I'm shifting a little bit. I have to keep shifting till I'm sitting in my cave cross-legged, and sometimes my foot falls asleep. Now, I know that this is something that all of us can work on. I myself have been working on this for years, and there is no such thing as a rival at the perfect person, the perfect calm Zen person. But when I have been able to use this programming to be able to flip that switch in moments of stress, instead of building on stress throughout the day, stressful moment, and it looks like a little mountain. You're just climbing until you just can't take it anymore. You've put so much energy into stressing out, you can't even calm down because now it's the end of the day and you've spent the entire day being stressed out and actually haven't solved anything. What's going to happen is if you can train and program yourself to flip the switch back to a parasympathetic autonomic nervous system, the rest and digest state of mind, each time there's a problem, you'll have a little bump in stress, reprogram yourself, and it bumps back down. And you go about your day, and then another stressful thing happens, little bump, and you solve the problem. And each time it just looks like a little bump, but you remain even keel throughout the day. Kind of like a little heart monitor. It's just a little bump, but it stays pretty consistent on the same line. You're not building upon stress all day. And there is a lot of power that you can possess by simply recognizing what you can do in every situation. When realizing that you cannot change or affect your environment and the people around you, but you can make such strides in solving problems and handling yourself better, the world is your oyster. I mean, there's nothing you can't do. This is going to challenge a lot of our perceptions on how to parent, how to sharpen relationships, and going back to the episode on codependency patterns, being able to decide, I cannot control the other person. I cannot save and rescue the other person in this relationship, but I can manage me, and I can manage my stress better, and I can reprogram my brain to handle things that I normally get triggered about. Knowing that those triggers are not my fault, the way my brain works and how I process data and how I handle things is not my fault. It's just a map or program that I've had since I was before 8 years old. But that I can actually reprogram myself, that it is possible to do that. And there's power in it. There's real magic to be had when you can start that work. So I want to, again, just reiterate that it's very difficult to do this kind of work all by yourself. But if you are looking to learn more information about the FLY program where I learned this, I would post that on my blog and link to their information. They have excellent workshops. That is how I learned this. That it's like 30 little I don't know what they call them, modules or something, where you take those videos and those classes and you do the workbooks. And it gives you a lot of practice and a lot of really helpful tools to be able to reprogram your brain. And emotional processing. What I do in the integrative processing technique is being able to help integrate brain and heart, being able to address those heavy emotions and to go back to an age when you had made a decision or a neural pathway that was maybe contradictory to what your true self would like to be. So I would highly recommend that if this sounds interesting to you, and if you're thinking to yourself, that sounds so hard to reprogram yourself, how do you do it? I would say, give emotional processing a try. It can be really, really powerful. And that is all the time we have today. I hope that you learned something a little bit today that made you spark that level of creativity in your mind on how to move forward and how to use the power of the brain and the research we have about the brain to make your life better. Okay, next week, I am going to take this discussion we've done today, and I'm going to carry it over into how to integrate brain with heart. And this is where I'm going to talk a little bit more about the integrated processing technique and what that looks like. The left and right brain, how to integrate them, and how to integrate that with the body and the heart. Now, I would like to invite you to please follow me on Instagram. If you love the topic today and any other episodes that I have done, I like to discuss everything and anything that I'm learning on my Instagram. And that is at prism_healing. That is where you will find me. And I also post everything about the blog and everything about the podcast there. And so I would love if you have questions to send me, questions about the topic today, questions about your own personal life, and something I haven't mentioned before, I'm pretty good at dream interpretation. So if you have a dream you'd like me to help you interpret, I would love to help with that. It's sort of like facilitating dream interpretation. Not that I do the interpreting, but that I help you interpret your dreams. I'm also on Facebook, Courtney Pearl, Prism Healing. And I have event every month, tarot for tips, healing through art, and heart smart art for kids. So look at my website, prism-healing.com, for information on those upcoming events, when and where they are. And I would also like to invite you to look at my services that I do for people, healing work that I do privately, private sessions, intuitive card reading sessions, Reiki healing sessions, and integrated processing technique, emotional processing that we talked about in today's episode. If you would like to book with me, I am taking bookings all summer long and all school year long, all the time, anytime. So you can book a private session with me if you'd like to do some more deep dive into your own healing journey. I would love to help you with that. You can also find me on TikTok at Prism Healing. I'm a little bit learning about TikTok and how to be on there. I think I might be one of the old guys on TikTok, but I don't mind. Follow me on TikTok and you'll get a little bit more of my weird. So I keep it a little more tidy on my Instagram, informational content for you. And on my TikTok, I get a little bit silly. So that's a great place to find me if you would like more of me being me. I would like to thank Ride the Wave Media, Jeff Blaine, for producing and editing all of my podcasts and being such a great support to me. We have been doing some awesome events. We just got done with Pride, Daybreak Pride Day. We did a booth there together. Ride the Wave Media was there, and we did some interviews and live broadcasting with Radio Daybreak, which is Jeff Blaine and Beck. And I would also like to thank Sarah at Daybreak Treasures Boutique. She features me as an artist on her page and her online boutique. So if you'd like to go see my artwork and the beautiful artwork of local people here in Daybreak, please go see that online at Daybreak Treasures Boutique. It's fantastic. Some of my good friends all have their artwork there on her boutique. I have been discovering true and real magic in the world, and I hope that I have shared that with you. So I want you to go out there in the world now, take what I've taught you, and make real magic out there. So till next time, witches and wizards, I will see you here on Practically Magick.